Welcome back, folks, to the quarantine edition of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. It's interesting that we're Spencer Miles, the president of NAILD, and myself have both had formal interactions with COVID-19 in terms of our businesses. We've had to respond, and as you can see, I am quarantining myself somewhere, which is a secret. You can hear about it on the podcast. Um, but before we get to that, I'd also like to tell you that there are two board positions available right now with the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. We have a vendor position available and a member position available, Greg.
That's right. And these are advisory positions using your sales knowledge, skills, whatever you might have that you can bring to the table for the Lighting Association and help us move it forward.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we changed right away is that we switched the NAILD board from really a working board to more of an advisory board that oversees and gives input, but then doesn't have to do much between the calls. So it's not a huge commitment. It's just your intellect and your mind and your lighting knowledge. So go to nailed or just email info@nailed.org. Get in touch with Bree at the NAILD office. And before we move any further forward, Greg, you got to go to satco.com, baby. We do the light thing. We do the right thing. We're talking Satco here, buddy.
That's right. And that's what we talk about a little on the show is doing the right thing. And you'll hear about what that means. But that's what Satco's does. And that's what they always do. They're the right company to get if you need anything in lighting. They've got everything you can imagine: fixtures, lamps, lenses, tubes, bulbs. What else is out there in lighting? They've got it. Satco's your key.
Yeah, you know what? They're a great arrow to have in your quiver. If you're a lighting distributor or your electrical distributor, you sell light bulbs, I would say the best, that if you're only going to have one vendor, it should be Satco. Go to satco.com, baby. That's satco.com. And of course, our association, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, go to nald.org. But for right now, we got the quarantine special. Yeah. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Spencer Miles.
Thanks for having me.
Say hi to the president of NAILD, Greg Eric.
Oh, hi, Spencer. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think our listeners will notice that the background is a little bit different here. For the host of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, he's in his parents' basement. Why? How did he end up there? Well, Spencer, I was tested positive for COVID-19.
Wow. How you feeling?
I have no symptoms.
Oh, okay. You're not going to die on us?
No, I'm here in my house, and the reason why I came to my parents' house is because the public health was giving a mixed message. One nurse told us that as long as I wasn't in the home, that my kids could go to self-monitoring, and another public health nurse told us that they had to be self-isolated. So we had a choice to make, and so we chose to, if I live with them, that they would have to self-isolate. So I decided to move into my parents, both who are in their middle 70s, who also have COVID-19.
And how are they?
They were a little bit sick. My mom, I would say that they had a bad cold. The number one symptom, I would say, from looking at them and observing them and living with them for 9 days now, is that they are really tired. I would say that that's a real symptom of it, is tiredness, like a malaise. You don't want to do anything. They wanted to sleep a lot, and they did, and they rested. And then the cold symptoms didn't overwhelm them. They weren't coughing and choking and sneezing and stuffy nose. They had a little bit of a cold and some of the thing, but I actually think my parents have had it for the second time now. So this is the second time they got COVID. And I actually thought they had it back in February, where they were a lot sicker actually then. So, in response to that, we then had the commercial end of the public health go towards my business. And so we had to shut down the business for 3 days while everyone was tested, and they reviewed our COVID-19 policies and strategy in the office.
So they tested all your employees?
Yes. All of my employees were tested for COVID-19. And many of the contractors and customers that came in as well were contacted as well.
Who had to contact them, Mike?
Both. We were both responsible. I was responsible to make sure all my employees got tested, and then I was responsible to list off anybody else that could have been potentially, contracted the virus. Yeah, so our walk-in counter has been mostly closed. We have a sign on the front that says, you're not allowed to come in, but some customers come in anyway, and that's kind of how we wanted it for as we came out into phase 3. And then from there, so a couple of them were contacted. Nobody tested positive. So everyone is tested negative in my office. And it appears the idea that an asymptomatic carrier can't shed the virus, because I wasn't walking around sneezing or coughing and that, people in my office, we don't really hug each other that much.
You don't?
No.
You seem like the type that might.
No. We don't, we tend to have professional relationships with one another where post-body contact doesn't happen that much. And with the social distancing that, we had in place, which we had in place before anyway, in that people don't sit right next to one another in our office. Yeah. Their desks were naturally, a reasonable distance apart, which is more than the 6 feet or the 2 meters or whatever it is, that no one else was exposed. And so we were allowed to return to work on by Wednesday or Thursday as people came in with some self-monitoring, they call it.
And how many days were you closed then?
Our office was closed. Most of the employees were gone for a week. Some kind of trickled back in as tests came in. And it was brutal, man. It was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy time for us, for sure. Luckily, it happened at the right time of year. Like, this is our slowest time of year. I don't know how you guys are. But it was slow for us. So, this is kind of like the slowest possible time next to the date after Christmas. Before Labor Day is really our slowest time of the year. And so luckily it was the right time to happen. So,
and let me ask you, what did you have to do with your employees? Like, do you pay them? Do they use PTO, sick time?
That's a good question. I don't even know the answer to that question right now. I would say that I'd be happy to pay them, actually.
Yeah.
For this little blip in the road that we've had, and it's not something that's everybody, all the customers we didn't want to explain it to too many people. But
it's true. You don't want to put that sign on the door.
Yeah, but you know what? I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to many of I ended up working the order desk, taking one of the lines was forwarded to me, and I ended up taking a lot of the orders and reconnecting with customers. And it was actually really fun to work the order desk for a week and a half here on my business. And I've really enjoyed it and learned a lot and had some great conversations with customers. It was, what I would recommend any nailed member, if you haven't actually worked your order desk in a while, do it, man. Take a couple of days, sit down, field calls. Find out what your customers are saying to you and what they're after. I haven't done it in years. Like, when's the last time you took calls at Premier Lighting, Greg?
It's been a while, for sure. I mean, I've answered every now and then when needed, but to take every call, no. Haven't done it in a long time. Yeah,
I was basically one of the receptionists. Because we didn't have a receptionist, right, or whatever. And so it was coming in and I was taking the calls and just talking to people and finding out, oh yeah, I'm calling to pay a bill. How do you pay for that? Oh, I use my credit card. And oh yeah, cool. All right, yeah, let me give you this person's number, call them. And then we had, I'm looking for this light bulb. And I thought, man, this reminds me of the old days, right? People calling in looking for light bulbs. You know what? Do you know what an LU 400 is? Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah. It was fun, dude. Yeah, I was writing orders like crazy.
I did that last summer. We had a company event, so I was the only one. I sent everybody to the event and stayed back and ran the office for the day. It was a little hectic, trying to do 7 people's jobs, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So how about you, Spence? Anything new with you on your end?
Yes, I mean, I haven't gotten COVID, but I've had an employee get it. So I've got the standpoint of running the business. What did I have to do? So that was a little insane, but we got through it.
What kind of things did you go through? I know Mike kind of shared his idea. What did you have? So somebody told you, the employer reported, I tested positive?
Yeah, I mean, we luckily at the time we were pretty slim on our staff, so I want to say I maybe had 5 people total, including myself and John in the office. So we didn't have a lot of people, but he started getting sick, and we're also very lucky in that we have a testing facility within a mile of our office that anybody can just drive up and drive through, and in 5 minutes you get tested. So I'd send him, and came back negative, actually. So came back to work. At the time, I think I had him stay away for 2 days. So negative, came back to work. About 3 days later, he called me on a weekend, actually, and said, man, I'm having a lot of weird symptoms that I can't smell things, right? So that's immediately when I went, all right, you got to stay home, go get another test. This time it came back positive. So then, following CDC guidelines, state of Washington guidelines, I had to talk to every employee that he came in contact with, which luckily, again, was only 4 people. And he's not in the office, 8 hours a day like everybody else. So I had to sit down everybody, tell them, hey, you've been in contact with somebody. And it's up to you at that point if you want to go get tested. There is, the facility a mile away. I believe I had one person actually go. Nobody else showed symptoms. So most part, everybody was like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I don't have symptoms. I'm good. The hard part obviously came from having an employee down, very vital employee, actually, and having to figure out payroll. That was one of the hardest parts. But luckily, in the United States, I don't know about Canada, but we have the Family First Response Act, whatever is FCFRA. So he was paid 2 weeks by the federal government. So I was able to keep him away. But as you say, with the tracers, that became the interesting part. We were getting conflicting information out of them. I believe one of them said after 3 days, if you don't have a fever, you can go back to work. And I believe that was actually due to the fact that we are listed as an essential business. So if you go to the CDC's website, it'll say under essential business, they can continue to work. So obviously I did not want that. I said, no, absolutely not. You stay away for 2 weeks. And within a week, he was already texting me, can I come back on board? I don't have any symptoms. But no, I said, the government's paying you for 2 weeks, so go ahead and just sit it out. So that was, and we've had some, scares. I've had an employee's spouse get it. He then quarantined for 2 weeks. No, sorry, that was almost 4 weeks. So he got some conflicting information as well, that it was a 10-day quarantine first, then a 14-day. He ended up not working for 3 weeks, actually. So that was a little crazy. But he did not come down with it. I sent him probably 4 or 5 times for a test. Poor guy. I kept telling him he needed a negative test to come back to work. So it was a little trying times, but we got through it.
So you guys are both, in my opinion, doing whatever the right thing is, right? But who polices it? Who's telling you what to do? Is it all in your own discretion? And you're saying, I know you're following guidelines, but is it defined enough where it says these are the steps you take? This is what you do?
Not for me. Absolutely not. No, it was, I had to go find the information myself on websites. Nobody contacted me. They obviously knew the employer of these people. They did not contact me. It was more of piecing together my own information from either our state or the CDC. That was literally what we did. And then, yeah, you're right. You're doing what you think is right.
Mike?
So I had to speak with a public health nurse every day from the city of Toronto, one that handles commercial businesses.
She called you, or you had to call her as part of a schedule?
She called me until I answered.
Okay.
Okay. Like she didn't, like you, I had to speak to her every day, and I had to report back. Like it was intense. Like it was, I want to open my business. You're not allowed to open your business.
Wow.
We need to get back some negative tests from your employees first. And so while the protocol was tough from the city of Toronto, it was clear. She was, making sure that, there's 2 parts to this. There's, what some light bulb salesman thinks of all this. And then there's the people that are in charge. Okay.
Mhm.
And those people can cause you a lot of problems. If you don't, if you don't treat them with respect and honor the fact that they have a job to do and they don't really give a crap about your opinions about this. I'm just here to walk you through the process, son. This is how it works. We don't want this to transmit anymore. And we've allocated 95% of all of our resources into this. And what was interesting is the public health nurse I worked with, which was really sad. I felt like this was very sad. And we discussed it a little bit with her, was that she was a prenatal nurse that worked with people who have children that are born with Down syndrome and stuff like that.
Mm.
And so she's like a specialist. And so the people that are like higher, better nurses, they get deployed to the commercial. And then maybe the lower ones, I felt like the ones that were dealing with me personally and were dealing with my parents were kind of like less professional or weren't as high level in their knowledge, because it's more complicated to deal with. You could have a business that has 200, 300 people that you have to work through the problems with, right? Everyone has to get tested. Where are we at? Are we reopening the meat plant? Are we not reopening the meat plant? All my stock's going rotten. You know what I'm saying? Like, there can be pretty intense things going on in some businesses, right? So, and they can be essentially a part of the supply chain. Like that factory could deliver, 40% of Ontario's milk or something like that, right? Or 50% of the bacon. I mean, I don't know, right? You never know what the heck is going on with businesses out there. And so she was very clear, and they had a clear response. They were organized. They knew what to do. They asked a lot of questions. They made it very clear to me that there was no room for that 100% candor was necessary, and that we were going to deal in full and frank disclosure. Things like that were discussed. So, I left the experience feeling like they had handled it competently. What I felt was most sad was the fact that Ontario has lost somebody. My brother has a Down syndrome child. My nephew, he's named after me. His name's Michael Colligan, actually. And they had a lot of support when he was born, with medical staff that had a lot of training in relation to children with Down syndrome and what to do and how to help those people. And that service is no longer available to the people of Ontario. And to me, I'm not sure what's more important. I look at it as a trade-off. I see a situation where if you step out of myself being involved in this, I see that service of that prenatal nurse helping those parents out with that Down syndrome child or that child that has whatever very difficult hardship from when they're born and they're trying to survive. But that person's needed there and not with me talking about how far away the desks are in my office or whether or not everyone's going to wear a mask next week or not. A bunch of healthy people, that are not going to die if they get COVID-19. And there's actually very, very low chance of death. So I kind of felt like the trade-off, and I feel comfortable saying this on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, I don't feel like the trade-off is worth it. I feel like that nurse should be back helping those prenatal kids that are born with, problems. So that was kind of my take from it all. They did a really good job. I felt like they were professional. They insisted on it be handled properly, and they made sure it was, and they followed through until the end. Until the business was allowed to reopen with everyone coming back with a negative test. But in terms of the societal trade-off, what do I know? I'm a light bulb guy, but I think it's a waste of resources, to be honest with you.
Well, let me ask you, how did they know you owned a business? Like, for us, you go through a drive-through. Let's say I get it. They wouldn't know I'm the owner of the business. So, how did they know you were?
Right. So what happens is when you test positive, you have to tell them where you've been, where you work, and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So the public health nurse will collect this information. So she asked me, where do you work? I work at Atlas Lighting and Sales. Where is that? 3800 Victoria Park Avenue. Who's your manager? I'm the owner. Oh, you're the owner. Okay.
Now you're in that bucket. Yeah.
Right. And so that's how it goes. And so the way they handled it, I felt they handled it proficiently, professionally. It was thorough, and they did a good job based on what their outcome they want to achieve is. Whether or not it's a good allocation of medical resources, I'll leave that to the experts. But my gut instinct is that it's a bad allocation of resources.
So, Spencer, you weren't really given direction. How much of your time did you spend figuring this out?
Zero direction, to be exact.
Yeah.
A lot. I obviously, running the business when it started in March and April, I attended webinars of anyone I could, read a lot about it. But then when you're faced with the decision of what to do, every night I just was online reading, anything and everything I could to figure out. And obviously you have the humanity side of it, right? I don't want every employee to get it. I don't want them to take it home to their parents, right? They've stoked that fear into everybody. So you got to make the decisions, for your people, for your company. But no, zero direction. It was. I was actually shocked. I was expecting a phone call at some point from some official somewhere. Nothing. Zero. And in our state, they'll go out in the media and tell you they hired over 2,000 contact tracers. I don't know exactly how they trained them because you got to social distance. So I would assume that was over Zoom. And after going through it with, a couple of employees and friends as well, none of the information is the same. Every one of those 2,000 people is telling a different story. And you got to think that's because they interpreted their Zoom meetings and their 1 week or 2 week Zoom training to be a contact tracer. They interpreted it differently, as any of our employees would, right? Take LS1, for instance. They probably all interpret it differently. So it was odd that I didn't get a call. I'm glad I didn't get a call, obviously. I didn't want to have to deal with it. But, yeah, it's pretty much on you, the manager or owner, to make your decisions.
See, I'm going to be straightforward here on this. I haven't spent any time really researching what to do if it happens, and luckily it hasn't happened here. I do have a partner that has looked into it a little bit more, but I would have no clue what to do. And just in talking to you guys and kind of hearing this, it almost seems like there should be some sort of policy procedure manual put together, or I don't know what it would be for small businesses or businesses in general. Because I think back to when before I was in lighting, I worked at a credit union. And we focused a lot of time every year on doing a disaster recovery plan. And it was this big, long document that if this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do this, down the line. In a lighting company, I just go sell light bulbs. So what are we supposed to do as business owners? Are we supposed to have a plan in place? Is there a plan that maybe you share it with us? You guys put it together. I don't know.
Technically, at least by our state, yes, you are supposed to have a plan. So obviously, I put one into place in case I did get the call. We had our procedures in place prior, but yeah, I quickly put one in place.
We have templated documents saying, wear a mask and all that stuff. But I'm talking like, no, your employee gets it or someone gets it. What do you do? And that just seems like there's no answer.
I would tell you, I've been a big proponent of telling all the employees, I don't care if it's allergies. I don't care if something in your body tells you you're not 100%, call in. Just stay away. And especially the smell. At least with my age group, I got a pretty young crew here, all under the age of 40, except for a couple. And that seems to be with the 10 or 12 people I know that have contracted it. That seems to be the number one symptom. So I've been telling everybody, I don't care if it's runny nose, call in. And I think that helped us, honestly.
Yeah,
we were quick to jump and get them out of here.
How's your smell, Mike?
Oh, I'm fine, but I'll tell you this. So talking about the different information from different health professionals. So as you know, like we all have our own community of friends and stuff like that. And I'm not going to say the person's role or anything like that to indicate who this man is. But he is very, very important in Ontario's COVID response. Okay. And, him and I had a frank conversation about all of this, and he explained the rules and everything else. And he told me flat out that without a, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this, he told me flat out that all the public health departments are going to give you a different story. They're all doing their own thing. So if you're in this region or this city or whatever, they're all going to have a different story, and the information is still coming out about what they should and shouldn't do, and it's changing every day. But one of the things I'll note here, so I read the Toronto bylaw about mask wearing. Okay. And I'm not going to wear a mask at my business every day. Okay. And so I read the bylaw, and she said, yes, your employees are all required to wear masks now. And I said, well, according to the bylaw, people who do not have to wear a mask are face covering. Okay. Employees within an area designated for them and not for public access are within or behind a physical barrier. Well, that's not an issue for me, right? I can create that for my employees. And so that's right in the bylaws. And so I would encourage people, a lot of these bylaws that you're talking about, Greg, they're already created. But likely it's got something to do with your municipality rather than the state of Washington, or a local health authority that does public health. And they'll have a bylaw that you can read. It will probably be written in plain English and not legalese. And you can read that and inform yourself. And once I read that, kind of like, okay, this makes sense to me what they're trying to achieve here and where things matter and where they don't. And so we were able to get a lot of information. Like another thing is that the virus is not likely to transmit from between people in an office if they're not within 6 feet of each other for more than 15 minutes. Like that was a really interesting. Like, how often are you sitting beside somebody less than 6 feet away for more than 15 minutes, Greg Eric?
Never.
I mean, maybe you cancel the Monday morning meetings or something that you always
spread out. Yeah, I was going to say a sales meeting is probably the only time. Yeah.
Right. And so you just, you would spread out or whatever. But like the things like that, people that are asymptomatic are not likely to be transmitting the virus. These are all things that came off the calls with the public health nurse and that. And so the pandemonium and the fear, I think we can set aside for a bit. And I think as business owners, the best thing to do is really inform yourself on what locally is the response. Puget Sound's public health department or something will have a bylaw and what they're enforcing and what they're not. So
with the experience you guys have had, have you learned anything out of this? Anything positive that's come of it?
I mean, my positive take is it doesn't spread like they say, right? I mean, I've had a spouse of an employee get it. I gotta assume he sleeps in the same bed as his wife. He didn't get it. I've had an employee that's been in the truck with another employee for over 8 hours for at least 2 days. Didn't spread. So I think the positive thing for me is it's not nearly as contagious as maybe they say when you distance.
Mike? You're still going through it.
Well, I mean, for me personally, this has actually been a wonderful time of rest and repose. Actually. If I was to take 2 weeks off, the last thing I would do would be to lock up in a house and go to bed every night at 10 o'clock and just rest and be quiet. I mean, I have 4 kids in my house. I have 3 teenagers. I have a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 17-year-old. I have a wife. I have kids. I got all sorts of stuff going on. So it was actually a really interesting time of reflection and repose. So that's a good thing that came of it. But overall, I would say that, my reflection on it, there's something else going on in the world right now that my gut instinct says that there's there's a lot of good people. Like the public health nurse was a good person. You understand what I mean? She was a good person. She was nice in the York Region Public Health. They're all good people. But there's something about this that strikes me as a massive waste of resources. And I don't know I can't reconcile that in my head. I can't, as a citizen, I can't vote for this. If someone said to me, we're going to vote next time whether or not we do lockdowns or not, I'm voting against this. And I think liberty and freedom are things that people have always died for. I think that's what we talk about on Memorial Day and Remembrance Day in these days, where we remember that what we have here is so special and freedom, free speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association. And when those things are taken from us, it's catastrophic. And so that's my opinion. I mean, whether or not people out there agree with me or not, it's up to them. But I think that the cost of freedom has always been human life. And I'm willing to pay that price for my country. I think, America has had many people pay that price. And what are they paying the price for? For freedom, for liberty. That's what they're fighting for. So I would say that, I think in New Hampshire, they say it best, man, live free or die.
SATCO.com, Greggy, satco.com.
Yeah, you guys gave your example of their motto there by doing the right thing. That's what you're doing with your business and trying to figure it out, getting through it, fighting, getting after it. And Satco, that's who they are, man. They're always doing the right thing, and they have all the right product. Everything to do with lighting that you need, they've got. They got a great new website, innovative product that comes out constantly, and one of the deepest lighting lines out there, lighting manufacturers out there.
They support the distributor. How do I know? Because I've been to their office and seen their warehouse and watched them pick the orders. They were picking, less than case quantity and filling up orders, so all manner of little orders for distributors. It was awesome to see, and they're flying out the door. So go to SATCO.com, baby. That's satco.com. And, Greg, we got those 2 member and vendor positions available. Isn't that hot?
Yeah, they're coming in. Board members, we need you. If you've got some knowledge you want to share or advice, we'll take it. We're moving this association along. We need some people to come in with us. So join up.
Yeah, we need your advice. It's not a working board. It's an advisory board, a true advisory board. You can ask the members that are on there now if you want. But yeah, you don't have to do any work or any calls. You just have to think things through with us. So go to email Bree in the NAILD office, info@nailed.org. And of course, thank you to Spencer Miles for the president of NAILD. Not for long. He's going to be he'll be the immediate past president soon. But what a great job he did running NAILD for the last year and a half, basically. And also, really shepherding it through its tough times, Greg.
Yeah, speaking of shepherds, what does that say behind you?
That would say, I will both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety.
I was wondering, I couldn't quite see it, but
Psalm 4:8. Yeah, Psalm 4:8. And so, yes, it's a very beautiful passage from the good book. Check it out. Check out the good book whenever you have a chance. I do. But for right now, the lion and the lamb, they're going to sleep together. This has been the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Thanks for listening.
Written on the rectory wall, there's a sign there for all. You are lost, Lord is there to find you.